Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Today you are going to learn on the new topic of time value of money from chapter 7. Basically, I have divided this topic into two parts. For the first part, we are going to cover the first two learning objectives, which I highlighted in red, where at the end of this chapter, you should be able to discuss the role of time value of in finance and the use of various calculation techniques. And the second learning objective is to understand the concept of future value and present value and the components involved in the calculation. Now, I believe that those who are currently taking theory of interest subject in this semester will find this topic maybe as a revision, okay, on what you are learning now from that particular subject. So the overall concept is just the same, but you may find the difference on how the formula used to find future value and present value, especially in finance area. But in the end, you should arrive to the same answers or solution. Now, let us start with the concept of why time value of money is important in the financial area. The basic principle is that value of money tends to reduce over time. So believe it or not, if you have 100 ringgit today, the real value of your 100 ringgit will be lesser even after 1 year. So that means the concept of time value argues that the longer the period, the lower the real value of your money will be. So if you relate time value of money with purchasing power from the perspective of a consumer, you will find that a 100 ringgit note used to buy groceries from a hypermarket in the 1990s will allow you to buy a greater number of grocery items than you would have today. So this indicates that the currency had a greater purchasing power in the past compared to today's value. So this is actually what we call as inflation effect. Concept time value of money also applies the same in investment, lending and borrowing process. And the factor that affects time value of money in this process is the impact of interest rates. Now, let's say you borrow 10,000 ringgit from loan you receive today from a financial provider. So you are obligated to repay a higher amount at a later date in the future. So with a 10% interest imposed on the loan, the total amount that you would have to repay after a year will be 11,000 or 12,100 after 2 years. So the higher the repayment imposed by the lender via interest rate charge is actually to compensate the losses of real value faced by the lender that dilutes over time. Now we first look on how to find or measure future value. Future value basically refers to the value in the future date, okay, on an investment that you made today. Investment that I'm referring here can be cash flows that you use to own a car, a house, and traveling and etc. Or it can also be cash flows that you put in any investment platform to earn a return. So in finance, future value can be measured using this formula. If you notice here that to find future value, you need to multiply the present value of your cash flow with 1 plus interest rate to the power of n. So why multiply? Because in finding future value, it involves the process of compounding. This is the example of getting future value of $200 in 4 years with 7% interest. So from the timeline, you can see the future value of $200. At the end of year 1, you will get $214, while at the end of year 2, it becomes $228, and at the end of year 4, you can see the future value of 200 growing to $262. Here you can learn the detailed steps of compounding effect in measuring future value from the previous example. It's pretty straightforward actually. This is another example to find future value using a formula, where example 2 shows you how to find future value of RM1000 in 3 years at the rate of 7% interest. Okay, now I want to share with you that in finance, you can also use the financial tables to find the factors for present value and future value based on the period and rate. Then you can directly use this factor to multiply with the cash flow amount. Basically, there are 4 types of time value of money tables, which are present value interest factor and future value interest factor. These two are for single cash flow, while present value interest factor annuity and future value interest factor annuity are used for multiple cash flows or annuity. Like what I have shown here is the future value factor of 1.2250 from the future value interest factor table for the previous example 2. In example 2, you have single cash flow of 1000 ringgit to be multiplied with the factor from period 3 and 7% rate. So, and your answer will be similar with the one calculated using compounding formula. Apart from using formula or financial tables, you can also opt to use financial calculator to directly compute any figures that you wish in time value of money. Okay, so all you need to do is just plug in the right figures to the right function, and finally you can click compute to get the answer on what you need. Now, in finding future value, the frequency of interest calculation or compounding effect can be done on annual basis, semi-annual basis, quarterly, and so forth. And when the compounding happen more frequently than annual, then the larger will be the future value. In this slide, notice that you need to divide the rate and to multiply the period with the frequency of compounding accordingly to get the correct answer. Okay, if you look at the example here for semi-annual compounding, okay, a 5% interest, you need to divide by 2 for the rate, and for the 2 years, you need to multiply with 2. The same goes to quarterly, where you divide the rate with 4 and you multiply 2 years with 4. Now we proceed to find the present value. Okay, by using the same future value formula earlier, you should be able to rearrange it to get present value, where you have to divide future value with 1 plus interest rate to the power of n. And to get present value, it involves the process of discounting. Example 1 shows you the timeline and discounting process to get present value of future cash flows of 4 years at 7% interest. So if you look at from the timeline here, all the cash flow of 200 will be discount and will bring to the same timeline here, which is to today's value. This example shows the solution in finding present value of 10,000 ringgit in 3 years at 6% discount rate using the formula. And finally, as I've mentioned earlier, you can also use financial table of present value interest factor to directly find the required factor based on the right period and rate to be multiplied with the single cash flow of 10,000 ringgit following example 2 on the previous slide. So I guess that's all for part 1. Thank you and see you in part 2 video for time value of money. Assalamualaikum.